I'm a academy coach at Manchester United, working in the foundation phase. So working mostly with under 10s, but also we have 9s, 10s, 11s together a lot. So, working across those age groups. I've been at Manchester United since 1994. So it's like half my life basically, because I'm 52 and I was 26 when I started, and it's 26 years later and I'm still there. So I've been really lucky to have a lot of great experiences, worked with some incredible people, and obviously what's been wonderful as well is to see dozens, possibly hundreds of lads, from a very young age that have gone on to play not just for Manchester United but for lots of other teams as well, professionally in this country and abroad and so on. So it's been, I always say I've had probably the greatest education anyone can really want. So starting as a young coach and here I am still today, still putting up with me.
Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, to work at a club for 26 years, particularly a club like Manchester United, is fascinating, really. And I think, obviously your experience, and I can only imagine the types of players and staff that you've worked with during that time. I think it's brilliant to have you on board today. But we're really going to just delve into the games programme, something that sort of Manchester United have been renowned for with how they set their work up, particularly in the foundation phase. So really, my first question to sort of open it up and set the frame for the meeting is, I suppose, what is the purpose of the games programme to you? What are you looking for from it?
Well, the games programme is just another part of our programme, and the aim for me is just to give the kids a fantastic time playing football. So, that whenever, whether it's a training session or a Sunday game, the foundation phase, we often play Saturday and Sunday. We have extra games because we want to give the kids as much game time as possible. So, I always say, well, if you want to learn how to build a wall, you have to lay lots of bricks. And if you want to learn how to play football, you have to play football. And I think a lot of people forget that, the volume of football that you play is vital. So, for us and for me personally, my point of view is that the more opportunities we can give them to play in different environments, but different formats, just as many different challenges as we can give them in a games environment, then that's what we're looking to do.
Fantastic. And I think what you're trying to achieve there, you've sort of summed up perfectly. Has it changed in the 26 years that you've been doing it in terms of how the games look, and is there more of a need now to play more games than what there were when you first started? Or?
Well, because when I first started, there were no such thing as academies, because that came in 1997. So when I first started, we only had a few signed players because you could only sign boys at age 14. So, we were just doing training sessions with lads that sort of, 12, 13, 14, 15, and most of them weren't signed with the club. So we didn't even have a games program then. I think we had under 16s. That was maybe it when I first started. Yeah. So there wasn't, we didn't provide that many games, but there wasn't a need because the lads would play. Like when I was a kid, I played for my school team, played for my Cubs, played for a couple of, played for a Saturday team, played for a Sunday team. So, when I was a lad, there was times when I was playing 3 or 4 games a weekend, and you had your district team, your town team, and all that sort of stuff. So back then, there wasn't that need because, again, schools football was really strong because that was before the teachers had, decided they didn't want to do that so much anymore, and, the disputes with government and so on. So, the clubs really didn't provide that much football, whereas obviously now the clubs have got a massive amount of control and a lot of kids, the only football they play is academy football, which, again, has its problems.
Yeah. And I suppose within your environment then, when you're looking at the games programme, what do you do now as a club and for yourself really to try and ensure that those children get those experiences that they potentially would have had sort of when you first joined, in terms of being able to play with a school, with their friends, and getting that mixture of different types of games? Is there anything that you would recommend?
I know our education welfare people work closely with the schools, and we really encourage the kids to play for the schools, because socially it's so important that they're integrated in with their schoolmates and so on. So, Yeah, if a lad will come up to us and say, "Oh, I can't come to training on Thursday because I'm playing for my school," and that's absolutely fine. Sometimes they turn up with muddy knees because they played for school and then they've come to us as well, and we tell them off a little bit and say, "Look, you don't really need to do that." But yeah, as long as they're playing football, it's all good, isn't it? So obviously, if they were missing lots of sessions with us, then because of the standard of the players that we've got and the standard they need to achieve, then that might be a problem to the development at that level. But the odd game here and there is absolutely no problem, and say it's great socially for them.
Yeah, I completely agree, and yeah, I think that the benefits and returns they get playing with their friends and with their school, I think, outweigh.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the problems with academy football is it's a very similar sort of test all the time. So you're playing, again, because of the age group banding, you're training and playing with the same players all the time. You're playing against kids of the same age all the time. Whereas in school football, you might have a year 4 kid playing with the year 6s, which is fantastic. And that's where a lot of learning takes place, is when, you are, you're mixing with older kids. So you're having different challenges there. And then the lad that's at the academy, when he plays for his school, he's really a big fish in that small pond. And that's great for him, because it may be that at the academy, he might be struggling a little bit in that group. Whereas he gets to be at school and he's the best player and he gets all that attention, and maybe he scores 5 goals playing for his school, and that's fantastic for him. So I think that's where they're having a variety of challenges for the kids, a variety of standards. So there's nothing wrong with playing when you are the best player, and it's easy for you because you learn different things then, and it's good when you're playing against older kids and it's very difficult for you. So it's that variety I think is really key as well.
Fantastic. I suppose one of the challenges coaches have is connecting the games program to the coaching program. Sometimes as a coach, you can be working on lots of things during the week, and then suddenly match day comes and it all completely changes. And I suppose from your perspective, how do you connect what you've done in the week to what takes place on a match day? Or is there a connection that you're trying to form?
No, I don't connect it at all, because we do what we do in the week when we've got our kids, and it's very game based. Just give them loads of fun, different challenges. So on a Sunday we might be playing in a game, and it's a completely different test, which is it's not right. That's why I personally don't put that much emphasis on the games program to the kids. So a number of times, we play in the Northwest. There's some pretty big clubs, and we play some big clubs, and there's big rivalries at first team level.
Sure.
And I spend quite a bit of time before the game saying, look, don't worry. Today you're going to be asked to do things that we just don't train for, because the parents are all keyed up, and it is like a first team game. It's an adult game that everyone wants. The parents, even under 9s, under 10s, they want an adult game, and those kids aren't capable of doing that. So I prepare the kids and say, look, just go and do your thing. It doesn't matter. You'll make mistakes. It doesn't matter what the score is. The most important thing is that, number one, you behave yourselves, because it's a difficult environment for them. It's quite charged. Some of the local rivalries. So you don't argue with the ref, you don't argue with the opposition, you behave yourself and just play. And then whatever happens, then we move on and we'll train on Monday night, and it's not a problem. So
I sense, Tom, that how you approach coaching is really similar in terms of how you would coach and how you'd work and deal with the players. Your behaviours, I sort of sense there's quite a consistency of how you'd work. I think that's one of the challenges you get often on a match day. You can get quite emotive as a coach. Yeah,
you can. But Ross, I think what you've got to do, and listen, when I first started, so 26 years ago when I was at United, I just finished playing professionally and all that sort of stuff. And so I looked at kids football. And in those days, I used to work with, 12, 13, 14-year-old kids at United. So I was just the same as everyone else. And I come out of adult football and I impose adult ideas and adult philosophies and adult tactics and strategies onto kids, right? That's what everyone, that's what people do. So I was the same. I was, shouting on the sidelines and, all only interested in 11-a-side football and formations and tactics and all this sort of stuff. But then you learn, and I had some incredible mentors at United, and I learned, that wasn't the way to go about treating kids really, and developing them and getting them to love football. So I think it's a decision. So I make a decision, I made a decision a long time ago, and I think if you struggle to get emotionally involved in the game, before the game you have to make a decision that, look, this is how I'm going to behave. This is what's good for my kids. It's not good for them to see me running around, jumping up and down, shouting and screaming, arguing with people. That's not good, because they look across on the touchline and that validates that sort of behaviour for them, really. So you have to make a decision that, look, it's only a game of football. You've got 9 and 10-year-old kids. It's little kids football. That's what it is. And they're just there to have a great time. So it doesn't matter if the referee gives a throw in to them and it should be, who cares? It doesn't matter. There was one time when we played again, a big Premier League club from the Northwest, and we played them and we lost 22-6. This is a few years ago. And I sat, I try and sit down where I can, because again, body language, you just sit down. I was sat on a bag of balls. I had about 6 footballs. I was sat on a bag of balls, and I just sat there and watched it. And at the breaks, just said to kids, don't worry about it, because they were giants, right? Their kids were huge and they played adult football. I said, look, none of them will go on and none of them will go on and progress through the academy, because they're very stiff, very wooden. All they're doing is following instructions from their coach, who was just shouting on like a commentator telling them what to do. I said, but you guys, we've got the best players here. At this particular moment in time, they're going to beat you, but it's not about now, it's about the future. So I think you've got to really make a decision to be calm and to be consistent and just to have a laugh. So, if you're a 9-year-old kid playing football for Manchester United and the opposition wants to beat you, but you look over and your coach is laughing and joking, and half the time I'm not even watching the game sort of thing and don't know the score, then it creates a certain vibe for the kids. Yeah. And then they look over and think, okay, this isn't that big deal. It's about me having fun and playing football. It's not about, this team against this team and all those sort of high pressure things that can easily get involved in kids football.
Fantastic. Yeah, some brilliant advice there, Tom, as well. So thank you. One of the things I'm sort of intrigued by is, in terms of that transition from mini soccer into 11-a-side, and when the pitch is starting getting bigger and, the emphasis changes slightly, how do you guys and how do you sort of help the children prepare for that transition into 11v11? Is there anything that you do in terms of games, how you work with the children, and, sort of intrigued by that?
I think this variety again is really important. So what's better is that it used to be that you played 8-a-side at under 9s, under 10s, under 11s, and then under 12s you played 11-a-side. So one day you play 8-a-side and it's just a sudden transition. Well, there's no transition, is there? It's just going from one to the other. Whereas now, the word transition is really important, because you give them different experiences. So, they play different formats. So again, under 9s, in training at under 9s and 10s, I play 14-a-side at times. 3 balls, and because it's good fun, and the kids want to play. Let's play a big game and stuff. Great, let's play a big game, but we maybe have 3 balls on there, and it's chaos and it's all that sort of stuff. So there's nothing wrong in that. But it's giving them that variety of experiences. So, I often see people saying, well, what's the best format for under 9s football? I think 5v5, or I think 4v4, or I think 8v8. But the answer is there's no best format, because they're all good. Each format teaches you different things. So ultimately, a club like West Ham or Manchester United, you are preparing them for adult football, aren't you? But they don't have to play adult football at 11 or 12 and that's it. So I think giving them lots of different experiences, you have got to prepare them, but that doesn't all have to be at once. So in education, they're going to be doing their A-levels at 18, but you don't have to give them an A-level syllabus in year 7. No. You gradually build up the skills so that when they're in the sixth form, they can cope with that level. So I think it's a very gradual, incremental process.
Fantastic. And when you're looking at then individual players, I suppose that transition into 11v11 is where some players will find it really difficult to cope with, early match, that are late maturers and may sort of still be really suited to that mini soccer. I mean, your experience, how have you dealt with perhaps those players that may find that transition to the bigger pitches initially quite difficult?
I think you have to be really patient. So there are lots of kids that, that are developmentally quite small physically and things like that. And some kids just from a personality point of view and mentally can't cope with the extra decisions and all those people on the pitch. So you have to give them time. If you recognise that they've got other qualities that are needed to be a top player, then you just got to be patient and allow them to grow. And there's, we play kids down at times, and that's got to be handled really carefully, because as soon as you say to a parent, well, we're going to play them down, they say, oh my God, what's happening? And we say, well, no, if we didn't value your boy and we didn't think he was good at football, then ultimately we'd release him. But what we're doing is we're putting in place a special program because we think so much of him. Then we want to do this different program in order to help him to develop. So I think a lot of it is, again, about communication with parents and just reassuring, especially the kid, that they're valued. And again, that's one of the great strengths, I think, of the foundation phase, especially at Manchester United, is that the kids know that we think that they're brilliant and we just want to give them a great time. And so there's that level of trust, that we want them to be part of the program, and their enjoyment in football is the most important thing.
I think you're able to put everything into context because you've had so many players that have come through that same journey that I'm sure you can probably name off the top of your house. This happened with this player, this happened with this player. And
exactly. And you see it. And so I look at, there might be a player in the under-11s today, and I look at him and think, oh, that reminds me of this player that was, probably, there are players now that I coached as a kid that are now retired from professional football. So you in here you've just got a memory bank of different players and think, oh, he reminds me of so and so. Okay, and how did we treat that? And obviously you make mistakes, and there are times when you do things wrong in the past. Think, oh, okay, we mustn't make that mistake again, because that. So yeah, I think treating kids as individuals is really important, but explaining to them what's going on, communicating that, and creating individual programs is key.
Brilliant. And when you're looking at position-specific stuff, Tom, I gather you guys and your preference would be to get the children playing lots of different positions. When do you sort of start feeling it becomes more important for children to sort of specialise in one or two positions or an area of the pitch, from your experience? Well,
I can't really talk so much about the older age groups because, let's say, I've worked in the foundation phase a long time now. But again, it just varies, because there are some kids that, from a personality point of view and a physical point of view and technical point of view, can play anywhere. And so you could say to them, like, you might say, Ross, look, I want you to play up front today. And it's like, yep, great. And then after, the first period, you say, Ross, you're at the back now. And okay, there are some kids that just take that. There are other kids that actually, they feel really comfortable at the back and they want to, they're facing play and the decisions are very different. So if you were to say, you go and play up front, it would really panic them. And so you wouldn't do that to them in that way. So it's difficult. You've got to get, it's like anything, you've got to get to know your kids, and you get to know the ones that, there might be ones that feel comfortable at the back, but for every now and then you stick him up front, he loves it and he runs around and he scores a goal. So, I mean, we there was one year, again, this is the year when there's lads now playing professionally, like Tom Lawrence at Derby and Ben Pearson at Preston. That year when they were under 10s, we didn't have a goalkeeper. So we just used to rotate them in nets. And some kids liked going in goal and some kids didn't. So some kids loved it.
Yeah.
So, you just got to know that. So there's not a thing where we rotate all the players all the times. I mean, a lot of the time as well, I'll say, I'll get the group of kids together and say, right, we don't really like to have many subs, but you say, right, maybe there's 8 of you, right? So-and-so, you're captain, Ross, you're captain, sort the team out. And then the kids sort it out. They sort out the formation, they sort out who plays where. So there's loads of different approaches.
Yeah.
If they're struggling, if you are in a game where against one of the big Northwest rivals and it is a tense environment, then I think the coach does need to take a bit more responsibility and more control to help them, because that's a difficult environment, a difficult situation. So you may say, look, your 2 best defenders, look, we need to because we play with a lot of risk and we dribble a lot, then if you've got those players at the back that dribble it and the opposition score and, 50 parents jump up and down and scream and shout, that's not going to be good for that kid. So you tend to, try and control that situation a bit more. But a lot of the time it's just get on with it, really.
Yeah, I think what you sort of speak about, because I think when you get naturally some children that love scoring goals and are obsessed by goal scoring, the risk sometimes, if you're going to be moving them around all the time, that actually you might take away the one thing that makes them really special, which is a real strength of theirs. Likewise, you'll have some children that just love defending and all they want to do is get the back. So,
but then I think if you explain to them, so I've said a number of times, to a kid who loves goal scoring, say, right, I'm going to play at the back for 20 minutes or so, because as a striker, right, you will find out when you're defending, you will be put in that position of the person you're playing against as a striker. So you will learn what's awkward for them, what's difficult for them, and it might help you to be a striker by understanding what it's like to be a defender. And again, at the age we're looking at, 9, 10, 11-year-old kids, some kids won't be able to grasp that at all. Other kids will.
Yeah.
So you can say to certain kids, so there are some kids I can think of where you would never have that conversation because it'd be one ear and out the other ear. They wouldn't get it. But other kids that will say, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, I'll play at the back. So it all depends. You've got to know your kids and it is about setting them different challenges. So, what might be challenging for one kid would be a nightmare for another kid.
I want to talk a little bit about your tournaments and sort of tie that in with results and winning and losing, really. I suppose from your perspective, when does winning and losing really start matter? When does results start matter being important? There's obviously been quite a change of late in terms of making sure everything's fair and equal, and we've come a little bit away from winning and losing. I suppose from your experience, Tom, have you seen a change in that in terms of a social shift in, when you first started, was there much more placement of an emphasis on winning and results, or does it kind of stay the same within your environment?
I suppose a little bit, but to me, winning is always important because, so when the kids go on the pitch playing against anyone, whether it's for Man United or whether it's for the local grassroots team, or even if it's in training, we're just messing about in training. We do World Cups in training where, the kids are put into different countries and we have a World Cup for a training evening and the kids are desperate to win the World Cup. Mm-hmm. So winning's always important. But I think what is our job is to, in situations where it is very tense and high pressure, like I said earlier, is to just try and reduce that and take that away. So I think there are times when the kids should play and the result is totally, it doesn't matter at all. And there are times when it's good for the kids to play in a tournament and, okay, we want to win now. But again, what I certainly do is that even though we're looking to win, we still give everyone the same playing time. Yeah. So everyone knows. So you might have the best player, then that you're going to get the same playing time as everyone else. And it may be that if we're winning quite easily, you take him off at that point, but you still, and you have a word, look, I'm bringing you off now because blah, blah, blah. You manage that situation, but I think it's still important to be seen to be consistent and fair in the way you deal with all the kids because they're all just as important as each other. And so it's just handling that. So I think winning is always important. Obviously when on a Sunday morning, I play it down and I laugh and joke on the side and try and reduce that. But if we win the game, then it feels good, and the kids enjoy it. But I think if you win every game, again, you want to give them different challenges. You don't want to, if you win every game, then you don't have those learning experiences from a close game or a draw or a loss. No. So I think winning is important, and from the tournaments that I do, the emphasis is always on that development and cooperation. So I try and make sure when people arrive that you always give them a high level of hospitality and you greet them and you make them feel at home. So, the coaches and the kids feel really comfortable. And so it's an environment that's very calm and it's an environment that's very friendly. So that, if some of the coaches or parents even that are there start, shouting and screaming, then me or my staff will just go along and say, look, just calm down a little bit. It's only kids playing football there, and try and make sure that environment's right. But I think wanting to win is important. But the problem is, as adults, we superimpose that, and then we emphasize it. If in the car on the way home, that's all they talk about. Oh, you won, and this and that. Then that gives that message as well. And I think if you just get in the car and say, "Oh, brilliant, well done today," whether you won, lost, or whatever, then it takes that emphasis away.
Fantastic.
Kids will forget about it really, the kids forget about it in 5 or 10 minutes. You get back in the changing rooms and the kids they've moved on, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose, Tom, in terms of hearing about your tournaments or getting some more information, is there anywhere the listeners could go for some more information on that? Yeah,
so my website is www.specialistsoccertours.co.uk, and obviously this 2020's everything's been cancelled, but we have teams from Japan and America and Canada, from Scandinavia, obviously Ireland, Scotland, all over England that come. And at the moment we're looking at we only do academy tournaments. We have done, but there's a growing need for quality grassroots tournaments as well. So that's something that I'm in discussions with some people at the moment to look to develop a few more tournaments and venues in order to give grassroots teams that experience as well. So on the website, if people are interested, on the website there's a contact form, to get in touch, or my email is info@specialistsoccertours.co.uk, and people can get in touch. But because I think that's a vital thing, and you look on the continent, a lot of countries have a great deal of tournaments, and it's a different learning experience. So we're great in England at leagues and cups and things like that, but having those tournaments, so mine are 3-day tournaments where you stay over. So you arrive on day one, you stay 2 nights, and so there's all those learning experiences as well. When you're staying away, you're getting to know, as a coach, you're getting to know the kids are getting to know each other. And it's so valuable socially as well as from a football point of view to take the kids away for a few days and play. And we play loads of football, because I know, being on some tournaments with United, we've been abroad, and you've been there over a day and you play one game, and the kids are climbing up the walls. And whereas as soon as you arrive in my tournament, you get there at lunchtime on the day one, you play on the first afternoon, you play all day the next day, and you play the final morning, and you're constantly playing football. There's so much football going on, and the kids love it.
Exactly. I think that those tours and tournaments, I think from my own experience of going abroad, have been brilliant, playing against clubs from different countries. And it's not necessarily what happens on the pitch that you learn about the children, and the children learn. You get to know the children so much more. And you can tell, that's one of the fantastic things for children going into academy football, is the experiences that they can get, to say they've gone and played against Bayern Munich at the weekend, or gone and played against Sporting Lisbon, and having that on your mini CV that you've gone and done these different things is incredible for young children.
And also when you talk to players that are playing professionally now, and you have a chat and say, what do you remember about when you were 9 and 10 years old? And they always remember all the funny things that have happened on those tours and those tournaments, not the games. They don't say, well, I remember on that Thursday you did a great training session, Tom, and they never remember anything like that. It's always funny instances, things that happen. Oh, do you remember when so-and-so did this and so-and-so did that? And songs, and, you have like a little tour song that people sing all the time. We went to the Dallas Cup in '99 with a lot of players that have now played professionally, and we sang Old Man River everywhere we went. We sang Old Man River for some reason, and the kids remember it now. It's chatting to the older kids, and they still remember that as a group of kids singing Old Man River together, and everyone looking at them thinking they were crazy, and they remember that. So it's important to create those memories, and it gives the opportunity to get to know the kids, and so they relax and they trust you, and they appreciate that you care about them, and those things are vital, really.
Fantastic. I suppose, Tom, obviously working in academy football, there's a little bit more flexibility to be able to tailor the games program, adjust the formats, and all these sorts of things. I suppose for grassroots coaches, they may not have the resource or facilities or ability to change the formats on games on a Sunday. So what advice would you give to grassroots coaches when they're looking at their games and And sort of you mentioned about the importance of having variety and giving them different experiences. What sorts of things would you recommend them looking into?
Well, just do it in training. So, big advice I would say is do not tailor your training sessions to your games. Right? Because you're playing a 9-a-side game or 11-a-side game on the weekend, then your midweek your training sessions aren't a build up to that game, because it's not a first team. First teams do that and adult teams do that, but you're dealing with kids. So if they're getting a certain experience on a Sunday, then it's your role, I think, to give them different experiences during the week. So if they are playing 11-a-side football on the weekend, then give them 5-a-side tournament, one night. Or, again, one of my big things is, I think as a coach, you're there to create puzzles, to generate puzzles for the kids. I think a lot of coaches think that their role is to solve the puzzle. So the puzzle is the game on the Sunday or whenever it is they play, 11-a-side, 7-a-side, whatever it is. And they think that their role is to solve that puzzle for the kids so they'll be successful. Whereas it's not. The role of the coach is to create puzzles and get the kids to solve them themselves. So I think my role is I try and think of games. So in my head, I've got probably 7 or 8 different games that I think really work well for kids, that give them different challenges, different emphasis. So, and I just do them on a loop, really. You don't need to have 150 different practices for your kids. And I will repeat. So if on Monday we do a certain game, we'll do it again on Thursday a lot of the time, because it's repeating it and they're feeling comfortable with it. And if that's success, so you don't have to change your sessions all the time. But I would encourage grassroots coaches to design and create games that are appropriate and that are enjoyable for their kids. And use the training sessions. It drives me mad. I don't see that many sessions, but it drives me mad when I see kids just stood around and the coach talking. I can't stand that. I want to speak as little as possible. When so you set something up and just let them go. And then when they're having a drink, you might have a quick chat to them. But, the more, basically, my theory is that they will learn more from playing than listening to me. And so you want them playing as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that's, in terms of that learning, to how children learn the skill and learn the practice, I think it's, just the idea of if you're playing on a computer game, if you were picking up your computer game and every time you picked up a computer game, you had a completely different new game to play. Yeah. You spend the first 10, 15 minutes trying to work out what does this button do. So
exactly. We did, in the early 2000s, we went through a period of 2 or 3 years where we did a lot of curver stuff, right? Now, curves, it's got a place, it's valuable, but it's very regimented and it's quite dull for kids, really. But they do a practice every, for about the first 45 minutes, an hour, we do these curver practices, but we do a different one every session. So the first 20, 25 minutes was the kids learning the sequence of the practice. And it just seems crazy to me that you as a coach, you think, well, I need to be giving them lots of different things. You don't really. If you've got some core practices like I've got, and then you just tweak them here and there occasionally, or if they work, and are the kids playing football? Does it look like football, basically? If it looks like football and the kids are enjoying it and it's giving them challenges and you're getting, a bit of defending or a bit of attacking and the different parts of the game, then just go with it. There's not that. I think that pressure to provide something different is, shouldn't be there. And you should, again, because you're coaching for the kids. You're not coaching for your boss. You're not coaching for the parents. You're not coaching because you shouldn't be coaching because you want to use those kids as the pawns in your football. You're not playing Football Manager. These kids aren't there for you to manipulate because you want to be, Jose Mourinho or Pep Guardiola. They're there. You're there. And again, this is another key thing, is knowing your role. So you're not, the kids don't look at you as the font of all knowledge in that way, is that you're there just to help them have a great time. So I know that the kids look at me and think, well, there's that baldy fella there that has a laugh with us when we play football. They're not looking at me as some sort of football genius. They're looking at me as the guy that they have a good time with. We come and play football, it's good fun, and we go home again. And I think just really playing down your role as a coach is key. And again, that's difficult in the current environment because everyone watches football on TV, and there's so much emphasis on the coach and the manager. And so then when someone's coaching an under-9s team, they impose that again on that environment and think, well, it's all about me and I'm important and I've got to tell them what to do. Actually, you haven't. You've just got to be there. Be there, let them have fun, crack a few jokes, have a laugh, sing a few songs, and the kids will be happy.
I think that leads on to my last real question, really. I suppose, how do you work with parents, or how would you recommend or suggest to coaches they work with their parents and their staff and the players in creating the right environment for those children, those at younger age groups? Obviously, one of the challenges in academy football and grassroots football is, I suppose, being really transparent with your parents on, this is how we work, this is why we're doing it, and this is what we're going to get from it. I mean, what advice would you give to grassroots coaches on trying to create that environment?
Well, I think most parents, if not all parents, want their kids to be happy above everything. If you say, what do you want for your kid? You want your kid to be happy. Yes, it'd be nice if they went on and were good at football or good at what they did and got good A-level results or played professional football, but you want them to be happy. So if you can communicate that to the parents and say, look, this is the aim of what we're doing here with our football program at grassroots level or academy level, is the number one priority here is your kids have a great time. Right? That's what we're here for. So if that is the starting point, then everything else goes from that. So if everyone agrees to that's the key aim, then if the parents see that what you're doing is purely in the interests of the kids, whatever the activities that you're doing, the manner that you have on the sideline or the way that you talk to the kids is for their benefit and for their enjoyment, then they'll buy into that, won't they? And likewise, if parents then buy into that and understand that that's the key aim, if they start screaming at a kid, well, no one enjoys themselves when they're being shouted at. No one plays better or works better when they're being shouted at. So then I think just remind them of that. Now, I appreciate that being at a club like Manchester United, you've got a little bit more status to say to a parent, look, hold on a minute, this isn't the way we do things at Manchester United. Yeah. And that's harder if you're at a grassroots club. But again, I think it's that care. If the kid knows that you care about them and their welfare and their enjoyment and their development, and the parents know that as well, then I think you can't really go wrong. I think it's when there's that conflict where, I said before, that the coach is using the kids in order to further their own career or their own agenda, then that's a problem. Or the parents are putting their kid into a scenario that they're not comfortable with. So I think if everyone's working for the benefit and enjoyment of the kids, then there shouldn't be a problem. Before the game, whether you're playing two halves or, the length of time you're playing. So you just plan it. So you say, right, after, if you're playing 325s or you're playing 235s or whatever, then you just say, right, after 20 minutes, I'm going to make these substitutions. And ideally, you don't have many subs. That's the key, is try and engineer a situation where, again, we're lucky because we can organise different games. But if you have lots of different games and opportunities and hardly any subs, then everyone's playing, most of the time anyway. But if you have a few subs, then make sure that after 20 minutes or whatever it is, you five are coming off and you five are going on. And then at half time, and just be really open with it. And if it is a game and you do want to make sure maybe at the start or at the end you've got your strongest team on, then there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're transparent with it and everyone knows that everyone's getting fair game time. It's a situation as you see it. So at times you might want to play your stronger team together. At times you might want to play your weaker boys together. It all depends on the opposition and the circumstances. And again, what you don't want to do is, if you play all your weaker players together and it damages their confidence, again, it goes back to the initial aim, is for everyone to have a great time. Well, they're not going to have a great time when they're on, they lose 5 goals. So again, that's where, if you plan it out, you make sure that your weaker players are on at a time when maybe your stronger players are on, and so I think a lot of thought, like I said before, before the game, if you say to yourself, I'm not going to argue with the ref. I'm not going to shout and scream. I'm not, I'm going to be an adult about this. I'm going to, choose my behaviour. You can also choose that you're going to be fair with everyone. And you're going to choose that little Jimmy, that he's going to get, maybe he's not your strongest player, but he's going to get the same amount of playing time as your best player. You can make that decision before the game. Because if you wait to make that decision until you're 1-0 down with 20 minutes to go, you're not going to make that, are you? You're going to keep your strong player on. So you've got to be strong about it, make the decision before the game and stick to it.
Tom, I just wanted to your enthusiasm and passion about foundation phase players comes through brilliantly. I think it's a fantastic set of age groups to work with, and you get children coming in with their first steps of playing football and that innocence that you get of just being a kid and having fun and playing football. And absolutely. I think that's probably, for me, one of the take-home messages, that you can get wrapped up in all these curriculums and topics and all these different ideas, but you can't lose sight on what actually the type of people you're working with, what the children need to get, and the fact that you really are there just to recreate that playground environment for them just to play football with their mates.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. You just, it's not adult football. And in a lot of ways, working with these kids at United for so long at these young age groups has completely ruined professional football for me, because compared to the stuff that I see, professional football is really boring and very quite badly behaved. And the managers shouting at it. I genuinely don't watch a great deal of professional football, just because kids football is so much more exciting. And they, like I say, they come to training, they run in, they're full of enthusiasm, stick them on a team. And again, one of the things that we do a lot is that the first thing that we do when the kids arrive is we get them into a game, get them into 3v3s, 4v4s. So they run into wherever they are and there you go, you're on Blues, off you go, and they play. And that's a great way to start. Everyone again thinks you've got to do a formal warm up or lecture the kids and stuff. Just get them in and get them playing. That's what they want to do.
I think the challenge for me and for coaches and clubs really is to extend that for as long as possible. It shouldn't just be when you get to under 11, suddenly that all stops. That whole experience needs to be extended for as long as possible. So, when people, if they go on and play professional football or go on to playing football as an adult or even stop playing, they can look back fondly at their experiences, like you've spoken about with some of the boys that have gone on tours and certain things. They're not remembering the coaching points and what happened in that session on a Thursday evening. Those emotional attachments they have to their experiences is what shapes their, I suppose, view of football. And
they come to you, Ross, at age 8, 9 and 10. They come to you with the love of the game.
Yeah.
Right? And it's your role. I think the key role is to nurture that love of the game. So when they come to you, if I pass them on to you as the under-12s coach or whatever, then if any way I've damaged that love of the game while they're with me, then I've failed. Doesn't matter what I've done, teaching them or helping them to kick it with both feet or head or whatever it is. Yeah. If their love of the game has been negatively influenced by me, then I've failed. That's it. And I think it's a really important message, because you only get one childhood, and you've got to make sure that for this time when they come to you, this is the best part of their day. So if they've been at school, I know everything's been different for the last 6 months, but in normal times, the kids have been to school. Some of them are driving in a car quite a long time to get to you. They've rushed home from school, they've thrown a bit of tea down the net and everything, got in the car, got to you, and then you've got that responsibility to make this the best part of their day, if not the best part of their week, so that football is the best part of their life. And so, in their childhood, it is such a great thing for them to come and play football, and they have a great time. So, like you said, when you look back, you think, "Wow, that was the time of my life." Really, that's what you got to. Whether they go on to play football or not, is that those times with Ross or those times, they were the best times of my life. And I think if you look at it like that and take that responsibility rather than thinking, well, we've got a big game on Sunday and we need to win, you emphasise that of giving them the time of their life, then I don't think you go wrong.
That's a brilliant way to finish. But yeah, thank you so much, Tom, for
joining us. And there's some brilliant messages there. And every time I think I've cracked this coaching malark, I listen to someone like yourself, and it makes me think, right, and I've got to make changing what I'm doing this evening. And I think for coaches working across all levels, there's some brilliant messages there. So thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.